I had just set the last box down on the driveway, stretching my back for a second, when I felt that stare. Not curious, not friendly, measured. I turned, and there she was, halfway across the sidewalk, walking like she owned the ground beneath my feet, clipboard tucked under her arm, lips pressed thin, eyes scanning me like I was a problem she intended to solve. "Excuse me," she said, not really asking. "Who are you, and why are you here?" No greeting, no hesitation. I glanced at the house behind me, then back at her. I just moved in. Her expression didn't change. If anything, it hardened. "Moved in," she repeated slowly, as if testing a lie. That's strange. We weren't notified. Something about the way she said we made it clear. This wasn't a conversation. It was an interrogation. I kept my tone even, brushing dust off my hands as I faced her fully. "Michael," I said. "I closed on the house last week." She didn't write that down. She just watched me, eyes narrowing slightly like she was waiting for something to slip. "That's not what I have on record," she replied, tapping the clipboard with one finger. This property wasn't supposed to be occupied yet. I nodded once, unbothered. Records get updated all the time. That seemed to irritate her more. "Do you have documentation?" she pressed. "Proof you're allowed to be here?" Allowed hung in the air longer than it should. I studied her for a second, then gestured casually toward the stack of labeled boxes behind me. "Most people don't move in with that much paperwork unless they belong," I said, keeping my voice steady. She didn't smile. "You'd be surprised," she said coldly. "We've had issues before. There's a certain way people carry themselves when they expect resistance." I didn't. That seemed to bother her more than anything I'd said. And I noticed everything. By the next morning, it was clear she wasn't done. I stepped outside with a cup of coffee and caught her across the street, half hidden behind a trimmed hedge, phone raised just a little too deliberately. When she realized I'd seen her, she didn't wave. She turned, pretending to study a mailbox that didn't need studying. Day 2, she got bolder. I was installing a new mailbox when she walked up again, arms crossed, already shaking her head. "That design isn't HOA approved," she said. Like she'd been waiting all morning to say it. I glanced down the street at 3 identical boxes. "Looks consistent to me." Her jaw tightened. Consistency isn't the same as compliance. Day 3, she moved beyond me. I noticed her talking to a neighbor, Janet. I'd learned gesturing in my direction with sharp, impatient movements. Janet listened, then looked over at me, gave a small shrug, and said something that made Karen stiffen before walking off. After that, the pattern settled in. Watching, noting, circling, noting, circling. Every small thing became a violation in her eyes. And slowly, you could feel it shifting. It wasn't just me noticing anymore. Others were starting to see it too. It shifted on the 4th day. You can usually tell when someone stops looking for answers and starts looking for confirmation. That morning, Karen didn't approach me at all. She stayed across the street, pacing in tight circles, phone pressed to her ear, her voice sharp even from a distance. I couldn't make out every word, but I didn't need to. The tone said enough. Then I heard it clearly as she turned slightly in my direction. "I'm telling you, something isn't right. He's not supposed to be here." I paused, one hand resting on the fence I'd been tightening, and just listened. There was no hesitation in her voice now. No doubt. Just certainty built on nothing. For a moment, I considered walking over, ending it right there. But something told me not to. People like her don't stop when you explain. They stop when reality forces them to. So I went back to what I was doing, steady, deliberate, as none of it touched me. But I was aware now. Every sound, every second passing, and somewhere in the distance, you could almost feel it coming. The knock came sooner than expected. Firm, measured, official. I set the wrench down, wiped my hands, and walked to the door without rushing. When I opened it, 2 officers stood there, postures straight, expressions neutral, and just beyond them, on the curb, Karen stood with her arms folded, watching as she'd already decided how this would end. "Sir," the older officer began, "we received a report about a possible trespasser at this address." I nodded once. I figured. Karen stepped forward before he could say more. "I've been telling you, he doesn't belong here. There's no record, no approval. He just showed up and started acting like he owns the place." The officer glanced at me, Do you have identification? Of course. I stepped inside briefly, then returned with my wallet, handing it over without a word. He looked at the driver's license first, then paused when he saw the second card. His expression shifted, subtle but unmistakable. He straightened slightly, eyes scanning it again. Colonel Michael Landon, he said, slower this time. I gave a small nod. Retired. The air changed. His partner adjusted his stance immediately, shoulders tightening. Then, without hesitation, the older officer stepped back and gave a clean, precise salute. I returned it calmly. Behind them, Karen didn't say a word. She just stood there, completely still, as everything she'd assumed collapsed at once. Word spreads faster than I expected. By the next morning, it wasn't just a story anymore. It was a version of events everyone seemed to know slightly differently, but all ending the same way. The HOA president called the cops, and it didn't go the way she thought. I stepped outside to grab the mail and noticed it immediately. People weren't staring at me the way Karen used to stare. They were nodding, small, respectful acknowledgments from neighbors who had previously kept their distance. The tone of the street had shifted overnight. Janet caught up with me halfway down the driveway, holding 2 cups of coffee like she'd been waiting for the perfect moment. So, she said, grinning, "You're officially the most interesting thing this neighborhood has ever had." I almost laughed. That's not a high bar. "Oh, it is now," she replied, handing me a cup. "You've got a reputation, in a good way." Behind her, I noticed someone's phone light up, then another. A few hours later, I learned why. The clip had started circulating in the neighborhood chat the moment the officer saluted. Someone had added captions, someone else added emojis, and by the time it made its 3rd round, it had become something else entirely. A joke. A meme. A warning. Karen, meanwhile, wasn't invisible, but she might as well have been. When she walked down the sidewalk later that day, conversations paused mid-sentence. Curtains shifted, not openly hostile, just aware. People had seen enough to decide where they stood. She tried to act normal. Small smiles, forced greetings, compliments that landed too late to matter, but nothing stuck. Every interaction bounced off the same invisible wall. By evening, even the mail carrier gave me a quiet nod and a faint smirk, like we were sharing the same unspoken understanding of what had changed here. She came by late in the afternoon, when the street was quieter and the light had softened. No clipboard this time. No sharp posture. Just a woman standing at my doorstep looking like she had rehearsed what she wanted to say and still wasn't satisfied with it. "I wanted to apologize," Karen said, her voice lower than I'd ever heard it. I didn't interrupt. I just waited. "I acted without checking everything properly," she continued, "and I made assumptions I shouldn't have." A pause followed, heavier than the words themselves. She glanced down, then back up. I was wrong. For a moment, I studied her, not as an authority, not as a problem, just as a person realizing the consequences of certainty without understanding. Then I nodded once. "Apology accepted," I said calmly. That seemed to unsettle her more than anger ever did. She probably expected something sharper, but there was nothing left to prove. "I hope things settle down," she added quietly, then stepped back and walked away. I watched her go, then closed the door. The truth is, power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. It just stands there long enough for everything false to fall away on its own. And sometimes, the best kind of victory isn't loud at all. It's letting everything play out and not needing to chase any of it. If you enjoyed this story, consider liking the video, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below.